Welcome to this 2nd February episode of the Hoops and Dreams QPR Podcast. My name is Brian Fisher, and along with a guest, I'll be doing a brief review of recent games, looking ahead to the next few games that are coming up, and most importantly, discussing some current topics. On to my guest. It's Matthew, who's a regular contributor to the Hoops and Dreams QPR Forum, and has also appeared on these podcasts a few times now. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Circumstances have meant that 4 games have passed since our last podcast. Having said that, I was secretly hoping that the later we were, the more likely that we would have returned to winning ways. It makes painful podcasting at the moment, but let's take a quick look at the games that we've played since our last podcast. Our last 4 games were QPR against Millwall on the 11th of February, which we lost 2-1. QPR against Sunderland, which we lost 3-0. Middlesbrough against QPR, we lost that one 3-1. And not to be outdone, we repeated that with Blackburn on the 25th of February, losing 3-1. So we got 0 points, nil points, out of a possible 12. And we are now 18th on 39 points still. Now, Millwall was always going to be a tough match, and it was obvious that they were facing a home side lacking in confidence. So perhaps the result was to be expected. And Valentine's Day against the Black Cats saw the team fighting to get back on level pegging and ended up conceding a breakaway goal. The following Saturday saw much of the same. Great effort, but uncoordinated, and a late goal to rub it in. In all fairness, most of what we could have hoped for from the first 3 matches was probably 3 draws, if we'd put up a spirited defence. So on to the last match, and the first with Gareth Ainsworth. He'd only been in charge a few days, so perhaps we were expecting a bit too much. But anyway, as he'd been only there a few days, perhaps for that reason, it was the same side that were beaten last week that was selected. And sadly, the scoreline ended up the same. However, the stadium rose to greet his appearance, and everyone thought he could make things better. So, Matt, let's quickly review these championship games before discussing that change of manager. I said draws against Millwall, Sunderland and Borough were our best hope, but do you feel we could have scraped a draw or even a win from somewhere?
Well, the Millwall game, we didn't create enough chances for me. You can clearly see the side was lacking in confidence and didn't have the willingness to go forward. And I worry about this team. Whenever we concede first, the heads just drop, and the confidence just dies out from the team, and that's the one thing I worry about every time we play. And just throughout that game, we just didn't really want to go forward. We kept going sideways and back, and that was the thing for most of it, really. And it just left gaps in the midfield and opened to a counter attack. And the second goal was annoying, really, because that's Millwall's food and drink, really, and we defended that horribly.
Very poor.
Looking back at the replay, so that wasn't a great look, and we got the goal back, and the intensity changed for some reason for us. At the end of the game, we were questioning, like, where was that for 80 odd minutes before the game? We were putting the balls into the box and putting pressure on the Millwall defence. We should have done that throughout the game, and we could have scraped a point in that game late on. And but again, it was too little, too late for me.
Same for Sunderland, do you think? Could have got a draw?
Nowhere near it for me. I think again, just the players I wouldn't say they were disinterested. They just lacked ambition, that sort of passion to close down, and they let someone just play around them. And you can just see, the first goal was a mistake by Sonny for sure, but we missed a penalty, which was a great opportunity. Chair didn't mean to miss it. It was a good penalty, but it was a great opportunity if we got that equaliser, then it could have been different. Because
where were the strikers to take that penalty?
True. It was a weird situation. I didn't see any player sort of go up to the ball and be like, I want to take it, I want to take it. Joe was sort of the person just pick it up and then I'll just take it and see what happens.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, as soon as we missed that, I think it
That
just
was it.
looked inevitable. It
Yeah,
just looked inevitable. We were going to concede, and it had
it
to be
did.
Jack Clark.
We
Had
we
to be
have
him.
this fascination with ex-players where we let them torment us. I don't know any other side that has this happen.
Oh, I agree 100%. I don't see any other side, to be honest. Like every sort of player that we've had previously, like Jeff Hendrick early in the season against
Yes,
Reading, he managed to
yes.
score two out of nowhere. It's just it must be some sort of thing that we have at this club, and it's so annoying.
Yeah, I'm not going to ask you about the Middlesbrough one because I think it's best that we forget that one. But what about the Blackburn game last Saturday? Was that ever winnable?
uh, Not really. I think in hindsight now, you sort of look at two teams that one with lacking in confidence and another one that's full of confidence. And I think they were on an unbeaten run. I think they were unbeaten in six beforehand. So,
Yeah,
and you can see they have a much settled team. You can see us sort of, at the moment it's hardly to put a team together with 11 players, with so many injuries. So, and to be honest, we equalised and then we actually at Bright, we actually put the Blackburn
yeah,
defence under pressure. But
yeah,
as soon as Chair got injured and he went off, the atmosphere died down, and
yeah. The heads went
and
down, I think. Mm,
they did,
mm,
and just the creativity just wasn't there. We just didn't know how to play without him, and yeah, that's what killed it for me.
Well, this was not the start that Gareth Ainsworth obviously wanted. He was looking for a bit of wild thing, but not quite like that. Um, Based upon those 14 performances, do you see any green shoots for optimism?
uh, I think based on the Blackburn game, I think there's a lot more. I think there's a lot more players that were sort of giving it a bit more. I'll say I thought Johansson was a bit of a standout in that game. I thought his leadership was pretty decent. Tim having a more forward role in that game was bright in that game. Um, Osman Kakai was I thought he was the best player for us in that game, attacking wise. I thought he was great.
You know what? Everybody I spoke to said exactly the same. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought just the willingness to get the ball in the box, and
Mm,
the one time he did it, we scored from. We should
mm.
just do that more often rather than just playing around the box all the time. That'd be more of a
Yeah,
threat for us.
I totally agree. Anyway, results do not lie. We are struggling, and our league position matches our goal difference. To put this into perspective, against Blackburn, we had 11 shots to their 9, but only 2 of those were on target compared to their 5. That conversion rate is just not acceptable. When you compare the end result also of 7 corners that we had to their 1, what did we get out of it? We were defending. We were against a side that not just defending poorly, I thought at times, but was also struggling, and yet we didn't score. We didn't put them under enough pressure.
Yeah,
I think Martin's header, which went over the top, was probably the best of the lot. It was really, really poor. We should be doing a lot more with those headers coming into the box and the crosses in general. Very poor. As you say, Kakai was the best player on the pitch, despite being at fault for the first goal. Um, and you have to think that player confidence is the real issue. When things start going wrong, we do see the shoulders dropping. We see stupid fouls being made, and defending best described as desperate. I think that's probably the best I could call it. This team is capable of far better, but Ainsworth has his hands full to improve the situation. I feel. Your thoughts on the team performance overall, and more importantly, the results. Did we get what we deserved?
for most of them, yeah. I felt we there'll be patches where we have good possession and good play, but we didn't do nothing with it, and you
Yeah,
know we came up against teams that were more clinical on the day, and will give us too much to do at the end of the day. And yeah, I think it was a tough run of fixtures. To be fair, teams on form that were near the top, near the playoffs. It was, I think the results that came out were really surprising based on the current form.
And I mean, you raise a very good point because we've come up against sides that like Sunderland, Middlesbrough, and Blackburn that are riding high. Their confidence level is the other end of ours, in extremes. So yeah, in a way, it's not surprising, I suppose, that we lost. And the lack of confidence, I think, is just killing us. So Gareth Ainsworth's going to have 10 days worth of experience, which perhaps for a manager is not that short a time. I don't know. On Saturday, the 4th of March, we're playing Rotherham away. We're travelling to fellow strugglers. I hate to say it, fellow strugglers Rotherham, almost certainly without Ilias Chair, and also the possibility that Ainsworth will make changes where he can. So what can we expect, Matt? Win, draw, or loss?
I've gone for a draw. Like you said, a loss of Chair will be difficult to deal with. I think Rotherham have had good form at home this season. They've been hard to beat.
Yeah.
But we just can't afford to lose this game based on current form and with the fixtures that we've got coming up. We just got to get a point here and there from these next couple of games. But with this sort of game with Rotherham around us, we can't afford to lose. And so I've gone for a draw. I think the one thing I would say is, I think with the Blackburn game, Ainsworth's that was his first sort of experience of the championship, if you like. He hasn't really managed a team against Blackburn. Blackburn were just they're just a quality championship side.
A different
Whereas
gear. Yeah.
Rotherham, I think he's managed against them before in League One. They've been in spells before, so I think he's faced them before, so he can have a bit more homework about them, and we could have a chance there. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'll say a
Uh,
draw for me.
okay. Well, I mean, I'm with you in a way. I feel Gareth Ainsworth will have by then had time to study his squad, look at who is available. Um, I feel there have to be changes. I do feel though that he's somewhat restricted in who he's got available. And let's be honest about this. If you've got somebody breathing down your neck for your position, you're going to try and play a bit better.
Yeah,
And that isn't the case at the moment. Um, anyway, I'm hoping that Amos starts, but I'm going for a draw, same as you.
yeah.
So, week later, we go back to Loftus Road, and it's Watford. We're sitting eighth in the table and a full 11 points ahead of us. However, they lost to Sheffield United, so they're not invincible. Okay, Matt, come on, win, draw, or loss?
Um, I'll be sort of a realist and say we're going to lose this one. Yeah, I just think Watford just have at the moment in terms of the injuries and the squad depth and everything else. I think Watford just have much more quality wise. Um, I just think the injuries would just take its toll. I think if we can keep it tight, 0-0, we could nick a goal maybe, but um, again, there's always that fear of conceding, and then if we need like someone off the bench to bring on and try and make an impact, it might not be there. So
No,
because the injury list is just so big, and like I said, well, they just have more quality for me.
no, that's fair enough. I mean, they've had a mixed season too, but they're in a far better position than we are in so many ways.
Yeah,
I've no doubt the R's will come out fighting and will like playing against a team that plays out from the back too. But I'm going to go for a draw, and I think that's optimistic. I'll be honest with you.
yeah, I'll be happy with a draw. Just
Yeah, I would be. Right. Okay. So last one we're going to cover is Blackpool against QPR, which is on Tuesday, the 14th of March. We should be recording the next podcast the day before that fixture, but I thought we'd try and predict a result anyway. Matt, what do you reckon? Win, draw, or loss?
um, I've gone for a win. I think at this point we've got to get wins at this point. Okay, you can get a draw against Rotherham, just because of the injuries. Watford will be difficult, but with this sort of game, this is where Ainsworth should be settled in then, like properly settled in. a few games under his belt, and then he should know his sort of, I wouldn't say starting 11, but his sort of players that he can rely on to start on that game. And that's where sort of the crunch will happen, like sort of 11, 10 games to go. He'll be sort of looking at that run where, okay, there's another team around us. We should be aiming to win this. And if we don't, then we will be disappointed because, you know, a win would just be, it's at a desperate stage now where we need to win games. And it's got to
Yeah,
be there for me.
it probably is no exaggeration to say that that game is worth 6 points. Um,
Yeah, for sure.
And by then, I think you raise a good point. By then, hopefully, we'll have more players available as well for
Yeah.
selection. That in itself will help. I mean, we desperately need to sort out the back centre backs. They are, they are lacking in confidence, and a bit of time to regroup will do them the world of good, I'm sure. Particularly Dicky. Okay, so I'm expecting another tough encounter, but even though we're away, I'm optimistically going for a win against this relegation place side. So you've gone for, if I remember rightly, a draw, a loss, and a win, and I've gone for a draw, and a win. Well, that makes me the optimist of the two of us, but it isn't by much, is it? On to the topics that we're going to discuss. Why did the fillip of changing managers fail to deliver better fortune? After all, we were effectively managerless, difficult to say that, after Beale jumped ship. So it would be realistic to have expected Neil Critchley's arrival to have made a positive difference. However, the squad continued down a spiral. Why didn't Critchley's appointment produce a change in fortune, do you think, Matt?
I think if he came in the summer, it might have been a different outcome. Just so you can just get all players, all squads have a fresh start and focus on a positive start. But he came into a really difficult situation where players are at the moment just suffering mentally, to know where they are, like um, you know, a style of play. They're just sort of questioning everything really. Um, the players I think about are the loan players who have come in. They came in under Bill, players like Kenneth Powell and Ethan Ledge. I think they Bill sort of persuaded the board and sort of begged to the board to get these players in. And now they're going, what's happening here, It's sort of their situation's up in the air, especially towards the end of the season. So I was just thinking about them and it's just he came in, he wasn't the right personality for me as well, I think he sort of came in and I think you can see on the pitch he struggled to cope with the players' mentality and sort of let them play through it, but you can see it wasn't working at all.
So do you feel it has anything to do with the injuries and the slow return of key players, or more to do with Neil Critchley's inability to make a difference, both tactically and in terms of motivation?
Yeah, I think the second point. I think he just didn't seem that sort of manager that would sort of
hair dryer.
Yeah, he just didn't look, especially in pre-match interviews and it's just sort of like a major difference to Bill. Bill was sort of widely spoken and attracting all the media, whereas Critchley was more soft spoken and he's the sort of manager where he would get arm around players, but at this point, these players just need a wake up call and realize that the poor run we're on, and he just didn't sort of fit that.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment. So was it inevitable, in your opinion, that Neil Critchley would be sacked in an effort to change our fortunes?
Yes, yeah, I was surprised he didn't get sacked against Sunderland because the atmosphere that night was pretty toxic, and especially at the full time whistle, there was loads of booing. I remember he was walking around the pitch, he was trying to applaud the fans, he got booed off. The music went up even louder to try and drain out the boos, and it was really toxic that night. Really toxic, and
for me, that's not helping the booing. But
No.
anyway, yeah, I've said on the Hoops and Dreams QPR forum that I felt Critchley was unable to motivate the squad sufficiently and unable to get his tactics to work well enough either. If we had continued to scrape draws and maintain the effort shown in recent games, then perhaps he was safe until the end of the season. But those heavy defeats took away that hope, as well as any remaining support from the fans, I feel. From my perspective, the board was damned if it did sack him and damned if it endorsed him. So it's probably wavered over the compensation to be paid in the end. And eventually the board decided it's better to cough up and press reboot.
Yeah, for sure.
So topic 2, we ended up with a new manager in Gareth Ainsworth. Firstly, is that a good appointment in your opinion, Matt?
To be honest, I'm not sure. I think one side is I'm happy that we got someone in who's more passionate and sort of knows the club in some way. He can sort of dig us out of this hole where, he knows the club's feelings and how they're feeling, and he can sort of get us going again and get the atmosphere going again every home game. And I think we've missed that for the majority of the season.
Yeah.
But what I'm worried about is will the team suit him? I think the difference is with Wickham, he had a lot of experienced players, a lot of workhorses that sort of knew that league. Whereas the Championship, he's got loads of attacking players. He has to sort of try and fit in. Once it all fit, they have to try and fit him in the system, and the players would have to be more different in terms of their physicality. They have to sort of fight for every ball, and it's quite, I've accused this team of being quite soft at times.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah, not giving away enough tactical fouls. You see loads of Championship teams do that in games to disrupt, counter attacks and anything like that. So if he can draw that into the players, then that'll be a good thing in our game. But
yeah,
that's what the players have to adapt with.
I totally agree with that. We've got to remember that we're now hovering over the relegation zone. Even though this is a league where often only a few points separate the top 6 contenders from those at risk of slipping into that relegation area, we've got to be concerned. When I was on the Hoops and Dreams special podcast to cover Gareth Ainsworth's appointment, I found myself sounding rather optimistic. I am still optimistic, but not as optimistic as I sounded. He needs to remotivate a squad that's lacking in confidence whilst coping with a good number of injured players and tighten up at the back whilst getting those crosses into the box at the other end. No small set of achievements if he manages to do that. However, I think he will inject some grit into the team, and he will ensure that they in turn that put maximum effort in there to get decent play, producing results. It's going to be a long haul though, this, and a painful one, I feel. What difference in the style of play do you envisage under the new manager?
Like I said, I think the players have to adapt with, they have to fight for every ball, go into more challenges. Yeah, some aspects of previous play, like pressing from the front and sort of just batting for every ball. Really, I think that will be the main sort of aspects of his style of play. With when he was at Wickham, it was obviously different with when he had Akinfenwa up front. You can't really do the same. You can't really do the same with us. So not many fans will agree to that. But if we do get wins from what he wants to do with his style of play, then we won't be complaining. That's the situation we're in right now. So, if
that's good. I mean, you're covering some good points there, and in fact, Neil Critchley, I hate to bring him up again, but Neil Critchley turned around and said we need to be gaining those second balls, and the ball's going up there, and Martin or Lowe may or may not get the ball, but it ends up with one of their players rather than one of ours competing for it. And I think that shows the lack of confidence that we've got at the moment. People aren't prepared to commit themselves in case they get beaten.
Yeah, I think we're just praying for this appointment to work out. Like, it's important to think that okay, it's happy. We're so happy for him that he's taken the job. But if you think about the bigger picture, it sort of has to work straight away because we could easily slip into a proper relegation battle where okay, the gap is 9 points now from the relegation zone. It could trim down if this period continues, and he has to work
Yeah,
straight away. And he was at Wigan for 10 years. It was such a big thing for him, and to leave that to come here, he's got a really tough job in his hands, and it's got to work out straight away. And of course, we're all behind him, and fingers crossed it does.
yeah. Good you mentioned the fingers crossed. I'll come to that later. we, you know, I there's been lots of discussion about a back three and whatever, and then flooding the midfield with the extra players. We saw on Saturday he went for his 4-3-3 formation, the same as we set up before, and I think that was meant to match Blackburn's, and it did well until just before half time. If truth be known,
Yeah,
okay, we let in a stupid goal when Kakai didn't close the guy down and let him cross. But at half time, that was just a dozy. I mean, it really was embarrassing. Apparently, he prefers 4-3-3, but whether he maintains that formation or makes tweaks remains to be seen. I think a lot of it's got to do with player availability, and losing Chair to a hamstring injury must be a major blow. Taylor Richards has got to step up now. Taylor Roberts, get it right.
yeah. You all got to adapt. To be fair, I think with Richards, it's I don't know where the problem lies with him. I don't know whether it's like a game time or like a confidence. He just can't get a run in the team at the moment.
No.
And yeah, it's just the attacking players. Just Tyler Roberts. He's had patches where he's done well, but he's just being injured all the time. So yeah, just the players available right now. They just need to step up and create because Chair was a big part of that, and it'll be a massive, massive hole in our attacking threat. I think
Yeah,
with Rob Dickey, for example, he works better in the back three.
he does.
Just seeing from a perspective, with the back four, he just seems to struggle. And I don't know if Ainsworth can use a back three quite effectively. I don't know if he's used it often enough in League One with Wickham.
I don't.
I'm
I
not too
don't know.
sure,
No. And,
but
and I
he
think
might.
he may not have the centre backs to do it.
That's the truth. Yeah, Clark Salter just can't seem to get fit in the
No,
moment.
no,
Balogun doesn't seem to be recovering anytime soon.
no.
It's
He
really,
wasn't
really
on the
tricky.
bench, so he's not ready. So
No,
I mean, the only other alternative is to call Masterson back and shove him in at the deep end, which is not really the answer, I don't think.
no, not in this difficult situation. It would be hard for him to adapt where points need to be won. There's no time to settle in straight away. So it'd be hard for him to come back into that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, we've got Dykes hopefully coming back in perhaps a month's time or something, and he'll be competing with Martin for that top slot, or maybe not. Maybe I don't know. Maybe he'll play instead of Lowe. Who knows? But we do really need to get players in there who are hungry to play, hungry to win. At the moment, we've got
100%.
players who are not too worried about playing and don't want to commit themselves in case they make a mistake. Anyway,
No, it's true. It is true.
it's going to be an interesting next three matches, put it that way.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, that has been an interesting, if somber review of QPR, and now our time is up. So all that remains is for me to thank my guest, Matt. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you.
My editor, Dave, as ever, and of course, you all for watching. Do click on subscribe if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, and do add a comment or two below. We'd love to hear from you. I'm Brian Fisher, and this was the Hoops and Dreams QPR podcast. Keep up your superstitions and good luck charms. Come on, you R's.
Come on, you R's.
We know who we are. You know who we are. We are QPR.